Oh, well, I'm back. I had to take a ride in to see the guys over at Precision Bearing in Worcester because locally I couldn't find these. There really isn't any place around here that really stocks industrial bearings, or is an industrial supplier for that matter. Anyway, so I went out there. Online, Fastenal shows the shielded version of the bearing, which was on the lower part of the shaft, for as little as $3 a piece, but they don't show them as being in stock at my local. Actually, I think that, yeah, the shielded one they had in stock, and then the one with the gasket on it is quite a bit more money, and they don't stock it, so it'd be special order. Find a lot of good deals on new old stock bearings on eBay, but even there, same thing. I'm going to have to wait, and then once you pay the shipping and everything, you start getting up to, higher prices. So they could have sold me a couple of cheap bearings for this thing, and I opted for the more expensive, higher quality SKF bearings. And I also opted to get both of them with the full gaskets, or whatever you call it there. I forgot my terminology. As opposed to the shielded, this has the rubber seal or whatever. So instead of having just this one on top be a rubber seal and the one on the bottom just be a shielded, I'm going to put a rubber seal on both of them. And these bearings, even with my discount, ended up running me with tax about $20 a piece. With the tax, it just came to $40.70 some odd cents for these two bearings. So these are not cheap, but these are the 6000 series bearing, which is supposed to be a higher precision or something. I don't know. Here's my philosophy on this. I could have waited, put the cheaper bearings in, and they may have worked out just fine. I don't know. But that shaper was made by Reliant, which was a company that distributed through a company called Woodworkers Warehouse, which had a chain of stores for woodworking equipment that is now, I believe, long gone. And I would say that's probably on par with like Grizzly woodworking tools or some of the other. I'm trying to think of the other company that comes to mind. But basically, it's all Chinese made stuff. The castings are all Chinese, and that being said, that particular shaper, the castings are decent. It's got a good I forgot what it had for a motor, but it's a good quality electric motor in there. And really, the bearings were NTN bearings, which are supposed to be a better quality bearing than the really cheap stuff. I believe NTN's usually Japanese. Make a long story short, I figure by putting these bearings in there and putting this all back together, probably going to have a shaper that's going to last me the rest of my life, being that I don't do woodworking regularly. And even if I decide to get back into it as a hobby like I once was, I'm not going to be running the shaper that much. All right, so unfortunately, because it gets dark so early now, it's pretty much already dusk out there. And I don't really think I'm going to have time to put this all back together. And we have rain moving in tomorrow. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe just put these bearings on this shaft in here. And maybe I'll install this in the other part and then leave that all inside. And then when it finally stops raining, I'll put everything back together completely. This bearing was a pretty light press fit. I was able to just tap this off. And then the interesting thing is the diameter, the OD of this shaft is slightly smaller here. So it's pressed onto this section. Then it comes off, slides down over here, but then it hits this section where the lower bearing is attached. So you got to essentially press it back onto this and pass this. Now, obviously, I'm not going to use that same method to put the new bearing on. I don't really care about that one because it's pretty much toast. So I've got this big metal sleeve that I keep over by my my shop press, and that's the perfect size so that the it'll slide over the shaft, but it will actually be pressing on. It'll press on the OD here, but it'll press on the inside one at the same time, as opposed to just pressing on the outside alone, which would be bad. And again, because it's such a light press fit, I'm not going to put this in my shop press. And I do wish I had an arbor press. I've been eyeballing one that was on Craigslist for a while. I think the guy finally sold it. He was looking to trade it, and the only thing he wanted to really trade for was firewood. Problem was I didn't have any firewood to spare. And if I would have give him the money for the equivalent of a cord of split seasoned firewood, well, I think that's running somewhere around $300. And you know what? A big old arbor press like that he's got there, yeah, sure, they're nice, but I'll tell you, I've seen them go for $50. You know, it's not just as hot a commodity as some people might think. So if we could work a trade on something, then that would have been nice, but I don't think I'm going to end up getting that. So maybe I'll do it this way. Yeah, I think I will use the shop press to get it started nice and straight. Boy, I'm real glad I save all this kind of junk. I got a little stack of collars right here, and they're working out perfectly so that I've got enough height to push this through. I've got a little grime or dirt line right there, and that's going to be handy in telling me exactly where to stop. And what I'll do is I'll stop right when I hit that line, and then I'll take my measurement with my calipers to see if I've got the oh, I may have bottomed out again. I'll take my measurement and see if I've got that 300 thousandths that I was looking for. Oh, it turns out that line's actually not very useful because that line was on this side, so by the time I push it, that line's going to be gone. So I just took my measurement, and I can see that I'm close, but not quite there yet. For the little bit that I have left to go, I'm just going to tap it here in the on the workbench a little at a time. Actually feel it going down, because it's a lot easier for me to just keep doing this than to take it out of the press and put it back in the press. That's why the arbor press would be nice. Real close now. 20 thousandths. 12. I don't know how critical this is, but I am going to try and get it as close as possible. 275. Well, that happened quick. I went from being a little over to 25 thousandths too far the other way. Getting this off is a little trickier. Well, now I'm putting the force on the outer edge, which I didn't want to do. But this might do it. Nope. Alright, I got it on. It's actually got the spacing exactly at 300 thousandths where it was when I took this apart. Alright, here's that assembly. So I got to get the old bearing out of that end, that's easy enough. Just whack it out. Oh, that bearing was only shielded on one side. That side was completely open. I'm just going to grease all in it. Oozing out too. Alright, so let's see. How do I want to do this? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this side in here first, and then invert this whole thing and press the other one in on this side. Now, somewhere on this bench, right over here, I have a hole. Because this workbench used to be a big giant door, so I've actually got a, it's drilled and mortised for a lock set right here. That hole just became a very good friend of mine. So now, ideally what I want is a sleeve that has an OD that will go over this but be able to hit that OD in the bearing. And that might be a little tall order. Let's see. That kind of is pushing on it. That'll get me started anyways. That worked most of the way. And so now, alright, that's flush. Don't remember if that bearing was, no. Let's see how deep this is. That's the depth there. Yeah, so that bearing just goes in flush. Alright, now if I invert this whole thing on this hole like this, I can pop this bearing in on this side. The problem here is, I got grease on the shaft, which is not a horrible thing, but alright, the problem now is that as I push this down onto here, it's going to want to push this shaft out of the other press fit on the other side. Let's see. It's cocked in the bore. Still a little bit. I think that top one needs to go in further. I think this actually was recessed, now that I think of it. Because this isn't even barely hitting that other spot right now. So, yeah. Alright, instead I think I'll just get this one on line. Because it's pushing that one out on that side. Okay. What I'm going to do, put this like this like this. That now will keep, when I push on this bearing, it will keep that from pushing out on the other side. Actually, what I need to do is I need to push this whole thing down. Almost there. That looks good. I think that's it. Of course, I can't get the calipers in there to check and see if my 300,000 spacing changed. I'm not even sure how critical that is. I think we can go with that. This is slightly recessed like I remember it being, because I remember this was all full of dirt. This is flush on the bottom, which makes sense because I measured the depth of that groove, and it was the depth of this groove was the thickness of the bearing. Alright, feels and sounds excellent. Gotta go pick up the kids.